Dear viewers, greetings and good day. And this is Mohammad Nasim Firdaus, and I would like to welcome you in today's slide presentation, which belongs to language, culture, and thought. In this particular slide narration, I will try to breeze a relation among language, culture, and thought. In other way, we can say that how language shapes our world, or how language shapes our cognition or thinking process, will be analyzed and expressed in this particular slide narration. So let's start. Without any contents, this particular topic needs to have a primary knowledge, and that knowledge comes from Whorf, and it was referred by Carroll 1956. And according to Whorf, and based on his new principle of relativity, unless there are similar linguistic backgrounds and the same way of calibration, we introduce or we observe a particular object from the perspective of its physical evidence, not in the same way. That means if we have similar linguistic backgrounds or our ideas are calibrated in a synchronized way, only then we will observe a particular object from the perspective of its physical evidence in the same way. Otherwise, we picture those objects in different way. Okay, let's go some detail about this particular idea. The hypothesis of linguistic relativity, I talked about linguistic relativity in the previous slide. Now, the hypothesis of linguistic relativity holds that the structure of a language affects its speaker's worldview or cognition. So, in another sense, we can say that we have a worldview for a particular object, and there is another view which our language can permit. And this particular idea is referred as Sapir and Whorf hypothesis or Whorfianism. And according to the Sapir and Whorf hypothesis, this hypothesis or theory is based on named after the American linguist Edward Sapir and Benjamin Lee Whorf. And Benjamin Lee Whorf is a student of Edward Sapir, and their moral theory of language is like that. According to Sapir, human beings do not live in the society alone. Language of the society predispose certain choices of interpretation about how we view the world. So that means in a particular society, when we are describing something, we shape that description according to our knowledge based from our language. So if our language doesn't permit to describe the things in that way, then we will not be able to do that. And according to Whorf, we dissect nature along lines laid down by our native languages. We categorize as objects in the scheme laid by the language, and if we do not subscribe to this classification, we cannot talk or communicate. So that means if we do not have proper idea or proper vocabulary to describe about that particular object or thing or idea, we will not be able to talk or communicate. So based on these things, that means that you have something, you know something, but you cannot describe it, you cannot express it with your language if your language doesn't permit or doesn't have this vocabulary to describe. So what will you do? You might not be able to communicate, or you might need to explore or explain a little bit more to give you the proper idea about these things. I think you need to go to the aspects about the Sapir hypothesis a little bit. Then we will go with a different view from the example section. So first you need to understand the theory of Sapir hypothesis. And according to this theory, it consists of two associated principles. That means that relativity principle is based on two different principles, and they are linguistic determinism and linguistic relativity. Whenever we are talking about linguistic determinism, we are talking about language may determine our thinking patterns, the way we view and think about the world. The way we view and think about the world. So first of all, how we view our world, and second thing is that how we think about the world. That means whatever the things we are talking about. Linguistic determinism is also called strong determinism. So that particular description or idea which comes in our mind, or by which we cognate about this idea, is referred as strong determinism. And another one is linguistic relativity. Okay, so what does Fishman say about Herpes hypothesis? If speakers of one language have certain words to describe things, and speakers of another language lack similar words, then speakers of the first language will find it easier to talk about those things. For example, if I talk in Bangla language and I have different vocabulary to express one particular object, and you speak in English language and you do not have proper vocabulary on that particular object or idea, if this is the case, then I will be able to better express about those objects or idea better than you. That is what Fishman talks about. Fishman says. So now here comes the example. Though this particular person doesn't look like a physician or doctor, but definitely we can have some markers like here is a sign of prescription, and you can see the syringe, and somehow it seems that he's developing idea about the disease or the problem, and the patient, yes, that poor patient, and he doesn't have any idea what was the doctor was the doctor talk about. Lots of questions come to his mind. So interestingly, physicians talk easily about medical phenomena, more easily than you or I, because they have the vocabulary to do so. And I believe it can be similarly referred is that in here, that means as a student of English literature, you might have some proper genre and vocabulary which we will be able to describe than the others who are studying in other discipline. So that could be possible. And here are some other examples as well. I think it will help you. It is very interesting. Language varieties in different culture, yes. At the very beginning, I talk about the connection, the relationship between language culture and our cognition. So here it comes. Our language, it actually molds from our culture and our cognition as well. Here's the first example. The Garo of Assam, India, have dozens of words for different types of baskets, rice, and ants. So that means that they can describe or explain, or they have different nouns to describe about the basket, rice, and ants. These are important items in the culture. Yes, you cannot ignore that. However, they have no single word equivalent to the English word ant. So whenever we are saying ant in English, that should be ant. However, they have no single word equivalent to. However, they have no single word equivalent to the English word ant. So that means in English we have ant, and we have particular connotation or cognition about that particular word ant, but they have different nouns to describe ants, but not any particular noun which have the same or similar connotation of English ant. Ants are just too important to them to be referred to do casually. So yes, as they feel that ants are very important for them, so they cannot just tell or express ant with the simple word ant. So they have different views, and they have different and ideology, and different language section as well. So they cannot express ant in an easy way like English speakers do. And if we look about the Spanish people, they have different nouns to express the legs. They have different nouns for people, the legs of the people and the legs of the bulls. And for the people's leg, they use piernas, and the bulls to have patas. Okay, so maybe we have the same thing in Bangla as well. We have the same vocabulary for human leg and bull's leg, right? So, but for Spanish people, they have different vocabs. So I believe they will be able to describe better than us. Both people and horses eat in English. Okay, yes, in Bangla it is the same. But in German, people essen and horses fressen. That means when we are saying that people are eating, that means people are essening, like that. And people eat or people essen. And when we should say the horses are eating grass, that means we should say horses fressen the grass, like this one. I do not have proper idea about German languages, so pardon me, please. And English has a general cover term animal for various kinds of creatures, but it lacks a term to cover both fruit and nuts. So yes, I believe some vegetables should be have different terms as well. We can have all animals, different types of creatures, all animals in one particular category, that is animal. But we cannot put the same thing for the fruits. Yes, and nuts are not the fruits, and in some vegetables we cannot say them fruits as well. So there are lacks of terms in English in English. So in other languages you might be able to describe it more easily, and you might have better explanation, but not in English. So, but what about Bangladesh? So have you found anything? And there is a very good and strong example I have explored for you. And if you look at these lovely pictures, you can see the different variations of rains. And these pictures are collected from the internet, you know that. And you can see that the patterns of the rains are different as well. Because in Bangladesh, as we have lots of rains in not only the rainy seasons but in also the other seasons as well. In the month of Boishak, Bengali month of Boishak, we have Kal Boishaki storm, and we have different connotations and different names of rains as well, like as Jhirjhir, and then Tip Tip, and then Mushuldhare. And there are different varieties of names of the rains, and they are different as well, because we have seen different rains in our culture as well. I mean in our geographical location. So whenever we hear those connotations gives us different ideas and different feelings. That is why the poets and the novelists and the dramans, they could explicitly explore and express the feelings of the human being, those who are inhabitant in this particular geographical location. But these different connotations of rain cannot be understood in English language, or maybe in Arabic language, or maybe in those languages which geographical locations doesn't permit them to see these different variants of rains. So definitely, as we have different connotations and nouns of rain, we have different feelings and expressions, and we can feel that through our poems and through the stories and through our dramas and novels. So we have that, but not for the others. So that is the beauty of this particular connection: language, culture, and our cognition. So we are at the end. That's why we have this conclusion. Language influences our perceptions of reality. Yes, you know that the reality is, that means the truth. It is true for all. But the perception, it is influenced by a language. Yes, the physical and cultural environment environment in which it develops influences the vocabulary and grammar of a language. Yeah, okay, that is pretty true as well. If you have different cultural background, and if you have different physical environment, and definitely it will help you to develop differently. It will influence you to identify with different vocabulary and grammar. Yes. And when different cultures meet conflicting discourse, rules can result in miscommunication with potentially severe social consequences. Okay, so I think though it came at the last, but it is very sensitive that, for example, if we differ, that means me and as a viewer from different countries or cultures, if our cultures varies and if our discourse conflicts, so that means that our communication can be misinterpreted, or we can be miscommunicated, and which will actually potentially a cause of severe social consequences. So that means there might be chaos like that. So if we do not understand each other. And language is a valuable source of insight into the perceptions, values, beliefs, and attitudes of community. Yes, the perception of a community or a society, the values of a society, beliefs of a society, and the attitudes of a society, it will be categorized or expressed through a language, and it is a valuable source, definitely. And those ideas or schemes can be explored differently based on the language. If your language do not have those vocabularies, if you do not have those discourses, you might face challenges to describe those particular thing. So that's what Fishman also said that. And here are the references. I have took an introduction to sociolinguistics by Wardorf and an introduction to sociolinguistics by Janet Holmes to extract the information which are presented in this particular slide. And of course, there are other sources as well, which are very authentic. From the very opening to this part, then definitely you might have some questions. Please do raise your questions. So thank you very much for being very patient, for being attentive, and to hear those things. Thank you very much. Hope to see you in another video.